Black Belt Sensei underestimated little girl's karate form. What happened next left everyone speechless. When Sensei Austin, a confident black belt known for his sharp tongue and ego, saw 12-year-old Kaia standing quietly at the edge of the dojo, he barely gave her a second glance. To him, she was just another shy girl, easy to dismiss, easy to underestimate. But what started as a casual challenge to prove his dominance quickly turned into a moment that left everyone in the dojo speechless. In just a few seconds, Kaia would reveal a depth of skill, control, and quiet strength that shattered preconceived notions and earned the respect of even the most skeptical. This isn't just a story about martial arts. It's a powerful reminder that true strength often comes wrapped in silence and humility, waiting patiently to be recognized. And what happened next changed everything. Just a quick little pause before I forget. If you like this kind of stories of overcoming adversity and justice, please leave a like and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to our channel so you don't miss tomorrow's special video. I guarantee you won't want to miss it. Now let's jump back in. The hardwood floor of Redwood Martial Arts creaked under the weight of a dozen students as they lined up for the Friday night kata review. Polished mirrors lined the walls, reflecting years of sweat, pride, and the commanding presence of Sensei Marco Reyes, a 7th-degree black belt with a reputation as sharp as his roundhouse kicks. At the far end of the line, barely noticed, stood a girl in a white GI that looked slightly oversized on her small frame. 12-year-old Kaia Morgan bowed silently with the rest, her movements crisp but subdued. No one had seen her spar. Few had heard her speak. Sensei Reyes swept down the line with his usual calculating gaze, correcting posture with a nod or the flick of a hand. When his eyes landed on Kaia, he paused for half a breath longer than usual. Not out of recognition, but curiosity. Or perhaps doubt. She just started last month. One of the older brown belts whispered with a smirk. Hasn't even earned a stripe. Kaia didn't flinch. Her gaze remained forward, respectful, focused. Her chest rose with quiet breath control, not nervous, but steady, as if she'd done this 1,000 times before. The students began their warm-up forms, and Kaia followed along. Each movement she performed was slightly too precise for a beginner. Her stances held weight, rooted like stone. Her transitions were silent, efficient, but modest. Deliberately so. Reyes crossed his arms, his tone sharp but measured. Kaia, step forward. Let's see your Heian Naiden. A small murmur rippled through the room. Some of the senior students traded amused glances. Heian Naiden wasn't typically taught until green belt. Kaia bowed, stepped forward, and assumed ready position. And then she hesitated. Not out of fear. Out of something deeper, restraint. As if she were considering whether to hold back again, or allow them to see. From the corner, a visiting parent, a woman in her 40s wearing a faded military jacket, watched silently, her hands folded behind her back. Her gaze never left Kaia. Reyes raised an eyebrow. Whenever you're ready. Kaia exhaled slowly. And in that breath, something changed. Something old. Something trained. Something earned. And though no one yet realized it, the room had already begun to shift. The first movement was simple, a downward block. But in Kaia's hands, it didn't feel simple at all. Her arms snapped into place with a sound like silk tearing through wind. Her front stance locked, knees flexed, heel driven into the wood with quiet finality. A hush fell over the group. She must have practiced that at home. Someone muttered, unsure whether to be impressed or dismissive. Sensei Reyes remained still, his expression unreadable. Yet his eyes followed every motion, the chambered fists, the rotations of her hips, the seamless transitions between defense and strike. He had trained state champions. He had taught in Okinawa. He had judged black belt exams across 3 continents. And yet, something in this girl's form felt hauntingly familiar. Kaia moved like she wasn't just mimicking a kata, but remembering it, living it. But just before the final movement, she paused. For barely a breath. It was small, subtle, intentional. She softened her stance by a margin. Let the final punch land a hair too slow. A child pretending to be learning. Reyes stepped forward the moment she bowed. Where did you learn that? Kaia looked up at him with quiet eyes. Here, Sensei. Don't lie. I'm not. The room stirred with low murmurs. One of the teen boys near the back chuckled. Guess YouTube's a good teacher these days. Reyes frowned. But something pulled at the back of his mind, a memory, blurred and buried, of another stance, another fighter. Years ago. Again, he said. Kaia obeyed. This time slower, sloppier, deliberately underwhelming. And just like that, the room's suspicion gave way to ridicule. Snickers. Rolled eyes. One of the black belts, Austin, a muscular 22-year-old known more for power than precision, shook his head and whispered, "Guess she just got lucky the first time." From the corner, the woman in the military jacket shifted her stance. Still silent, still watching. Kaia returned to her line, her face unreadable. But her fingers, by her side, subtly curled into a breathing rhythm. 1-2 hold, the kind used in high-tension combat meditations. No one noticed. Not yet. And in the back of the room, mounted above the door, hung a dusty photo of an old war hero. Decorated. Stern. Unsmiling. Same eyes. Same quiet breath. Same blood. But no one connected it to her. Not yet. They were still laughing. And she was still waiting. Redwood Martial Arts wasn't a prestigious dojo. It sat beside a faded laundromat and a pawn shop, its windows fogged from years of moisture and sweat. The walls bore trophies and photos, yellowed with age, relics of past victories, long eclipsed by newer, flashier gyms. Kaia swept the floor every night after class. Not because she was told to, but because she always had. Quietly, without announcement. No one thanked her, and she never expected it. She finished each night with the same ritual, a slow bow to the old framed photograph in the corner, a photo few looked at closely. General Elias Morgan. Her grandfather, once a legend in 2 wars, once the silent guardian of Task Force Orion, an elite unit whispered about in only certain halls of command. Few ever knew the full extent of what he had done or what he had seen, but Kaia did, because she had been raised inside his silence. After his passing 2 years prior, she had moved in with her aunt, the woman in the jacket, Captain Lena Morgan, formerly of the 5th Recon Brigade. Lena never talked about her past, either. Her jacket did the talking, worn down at the elbows, stitching on the cuffs coming loose. But on its shoulders still clung the faded patch of her unit, a falcon with a broken chain in its talons. Kaia wore no such symbol, but she carried it in the way she breathed, in the way she observed, in the way she listened more than she spoke. That night, after sweeping the mats, she sat alone beneath the corkboard near the office. Pinched between curling flyers was a list of names, students chosen for next month's demonstration at the regional tournament. Her name wasn't there. She didn't seem surprised. But when Lena approached with 2 cups of tea, Kaia didn't look up. "They don't see you," Lena said simply. Kaia nodded. "Yet." Another pause. Kaia finally glanced up. "Should I let them?" Lena stared at her niece for a long moment. Her face, weathered by duty and loss, softened just slightly. "No, not until they asked the right question." Kaia looked back to the list. And the next morning, she trained at 4:35 a.m. Alone, in silence, repeating Heian Naiden, then Teki, then Empi, not to impress, but because precision was legacy, and legacy was breath. Sensei Reyes arrived earlier than usual that morning. The dojo was quiet. Dew still clung to the windows, and the sun hadn't yet cleared the rooftops. He wasn't sure what had pulled him out of bed, but something had some itch he couldn't explain. As he unlocked the front door, he froze. Kaia was already inside. She hadn't broken in. The side panel near the alley had been left slightly ajar, likely forgotten by one of the teenage students the night before. But she wasn't causing trouble. She was simply moving. Alone. Focused. Fluid. He watched from the shadows, not daring to interrupt. She wasn't practicing like a child, not even like a competitor. There was no ego in her movements. Just weight. Like each step carried something she couldn't afford to let fall. Reyes's eyes narrowed as she shifted into Empi, a kata not taught to anyone under brown belt. But her rhythm was unmistakable. Breathe. Explode. Recenter. There was no hesitation in her transitions. Her footwork adjusted for terrain instinctively, and her hands pulled back not out of force, but restraint, like someone trained to protect, not harm. When she bowed to end the kata, she turned and stopped cold. Reyes had stepped into the light. Neither spoke for several seconds. Just the soft drip of rain from the dojo's eaves filled the silence. Kaia bowed deeply. "Sensei." Reyes returned the bow, slower. "You've trained before." "Yes." Where? Kaia hesitated. With family. He studied her. Why hide it? She didn't answer. Instead, she picked up her towel and began wiping down the floor, as if the conversation were done. But Reyes didn't move. His gaze shifted to her hands, small, but calloused in the exact places where a disarmed fighter learns to recover a blade. The wear was too specific. Your form's military adapted. Modified strikes, not traditional. Kaia looked at him. My grandfather called it tempered ka. Said it wasn't about belts. Reyes folded his arms, intrigued despite himself. What was it about? Control. He nodded slowly. And then, for the first time in years, Reyes said nothing more. Kaia continued wiping the floor, her back straight, her breath slow. But as he turned to leave, she whispered, You're not the first to underestimate me. Reyes paused. He didn't ask who the first was, but from the way she said it, he had a feeling that man never got a second chance. By Friday, the dojo was louder than usual. Word had spread that Sensei Reyes had asked Kaia to demonstrate again, this time during evening class, with full attendance. No one knew why. Some assumed it was punishment. Others, curiosity. A few suspected he just wanted a laugh. Austin, the young black belt known for his arrogance, was especially vocal. She's 12. Barely knows her left from right, he said, tossing his gear bag into the locker room bench. Watch her mess it up and start crying. That's what happens when kids skip ranks. No one corrected him. They didn't have to. He wasn't talking to be understood, just to be heard. Kaia sat near the edge of the mat, legs folded under her, eyes down. She said nothing, as usual, but something in her stillness made even some of the seniors pause. She doesn't blink much, one whispered to another. Neither do snipers, the other replied, half joking. But in the back corner, Lena Morgan stood again. The same jacket, same folded arms. But this time, there was something in her eyes, not concern, not pride, something harder to define. Restraint. Sensei Reyes entered, more serious than usual. He said nothing about the rumor, nothing about why Kaia had been summoned again. He simply pointed to the center of the mat. Kaia, front and center. She rose with calm precision. No stumble, no nerves, just presence. Austin leaned against the mirror wall, arms crossed, already smirking. Let's see the same kata from the other night, Reyes said. Hey on Nighton. Full speed. As you would perform in a tournament. Kaia bowed. Begin. She moved. This time, she didn't hesitate. She didn't hold back. The stance dropped deep and fast. The elbow block sliced the air with disciplined control. Every movement followed the last in a rhythm only the trained could follow, not flashy, but honed. Waited. Measured. She wasn't performing. She was remembering. Halfway through, the dojo had gone completely silent. Even Austin had lowered his arms. By the final step, when her punch landed centerline and her weight grounded like stone, no one laughed. Sensei Reyes's jaw clenched, eyes unreadable. And then, with the room in dead silence, Austin let out a single, low chuckle. Yeah, okay, he said, stepping forward. You can memorize a dance. Doesn't mean you know how to fight. Kaia looked up, and for the first time she smiled. But it wasn't joy. It was memory. Austin's smirk widened as he stepped onto the mat. Let's see if that form of yours holds up when someone actually hits back, he said, rolling his shoulders with the casual swagger of someone who had never lost. You game, little white belt? Kaia didn't answer. She simply bowed. Sensei Reyes didn't interrupt. Not yet. He stood motionless near the edge of the mat, arms folded, jaw tight. Watching. Don't worry. Austin added, turning to the others. I'll go light. Wouldn't want her to get discouraged. A few snickers rippled through the class. Kaia stepped into position. Her stance wasn't wide or aggressive. It was centered, balanced. Her fists remained by her sides, relaxed. Austin adopted a high guard, bouncing slightly on his toes. Come on, he goaded. Show me something. Still, Kaia didn't move. Are you frozen? He mocked. Or just scared? Reyes opened his mouth, ready to stop the farce. But Lena raised one hand, palm down, a silent request for patience. Reyes hesitated, then nodded once. Whatever this was, it had weight. Begin, he said, his voice low. Austin charged. Not recklessly, but with confidence born of routine dominance. His front kick shot toward Kaia's midsection. Kaia didn't flinch. She shifted her back foot 2 inches, rotated her hips, and deflected the kick with a diagonal block that absorbed the force rather than resisted it. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. It was precise. Austin stumbled forward half a step from his own momentum. Kaia's right hand came up, open-palmed, not to strike, but to pause against his chest. She could have countered. She didn't. The room froze. Austin blinked, stunned. You? Kaia backed away, bowing again. Reyes spoke before Austin could. Point. Kaia. The declaration hit harder than the block. Austin's face darkened. Lucky, he muttered. Reyes turned to him sharply. Then don't get hit. No one laughed this time. Kaia returned to the line quietly, eyes forward. Austin stayed frozen, still processing what had just happened. Lena said nothing, but the fingers of one hand brushed the patch on her shoulder, the broken chain and falcon, like a benediction, or a warning. And though the moment passed in seconds, something irreversible had begun. They had seen the form, but now they had felt it. And that was only the beginning. After class, the dojo hummed with quiet confusion. No one talked about Kaia directly, but every sideways glance, every hushed murmur was about her. Not because of what she did, but how little she did to prove so much. Austin had left early, muttering something about stiff mats and not warmed up. But the impact remained. Not the blocked kick. The restraint. Sensei Reyes stayed behind, staring at the old photograph of General Elias Morgan hanging above the entrance. He remembered the name now. Morgan. It had been years. He'd seen the man once, at a joint forces demonstration during a military exchange in Okinawa. Not in uniform, but in the way he moved. The way silence followed him like shadow. A man who didn't speak unless it was final. Kaia had that same quiet gravity. But how? Reyes turned as Lena approached. She hadn't said a word all class. She never interfered. Just watched. She's not ordinary, he said. No child is, Lena replied softly. I don't teach prodigies. She's not a prodigy. She's inherited. Reyes narrowed his eyes. Inherited what? Lena met his gaze, but didn't answer. Instead, she pulled something from the inside of her jacket. A folded, worn piece of paper, military parchment, edges curled. She handed it to him. It was a letter of commendation. For Captain Lena Morgan. Signed by Elias Morgan. Handwritten at the bottom. She carries the weight with control. Watch her footing. That's where you'll see it first. Reyes looked up. Kaia trained with him. She listened to him. Lena corrected. Most people only trained under Elias. She listened. Silence settled between them. She's not showing everything, he said at last. She's not supposed to. Why now? Lena glanced toward the locker room, where Kaia was changing. Because you asked her to. And she respects authority. Reyes exhaled, heavy with understanding. She'll be challenged again. She knows. She might get hurt. She's prepared. Lena's voice was calm, but behind it history. Fire. Loss. Reyes folded the letter and handed it back. She should have been a green belt at least. She doesn't care about belts, Lena replied. Only breath. And balance. And with that, she walked away. Reyes turned back toward the mat. Kaia had left without a word, but her form still echoed in the floorboards. Not just a memory. A warning. The days after Kaia's quiet but undeniable demonstration passed in a haze of unsettled energy. Redwood martial arts had never been a place of grand drama, but something subtle had shifted. The air felt heavier, as if the dojo itself was holding its breath. The regular banter that usually filled the room with a familiar, easy rhythm dropped off sharply whenever Kaia stepped inside. Conversations would trail off mid-sentence, and eyes that once dismissed her as just the kid now lingered longer, harder. Not with mockery or disdain, but with a creeping unease, the kind that comes when assumptions are quietly dismantled. Austin, usually the loudest voice in the room, moved through classes with a tentative stiffness that didn't go unnoticed. His smirks were forced, his jokes fell flat. The cocky swagger that had once intimidated others now seemed fragile, as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet and he wasn't sure how to stay balanced. Even the other black belts, who had often leaned on their seniority for respect, cast cautious glances Kaia's way. Their eyes spoke of reluctant admiration and unspoken questions. Who is she really? What more is she hiding? Sensei Reyes observed all of this from his usual vantage point near the back wall, arms folded, brow furrowed in thought. He saw the subtle changes in body language, the hesitation in tone, the pause before words when Kaia was near. It was as if a new respect was weaving its way through the ranks, built not on fear or dominance, but on recognition of something deeper. Kaia herself remained steadfastly unchanged, quiet, composed, and intensely focused. She neither sought nor avoided attention. During sparring drills, she moved with the same deliberate precision as before, her attacks and defenses economical, designed to use the least amount of effort for the maximum effect. There was no showmanship, no need to prove herself through flashy moves. Her every motion spoke of control, experience, and discipline far beyond her years. After one such session, Marcus, a senior brown belt known for his candid nature, approached her hesitantly. You're really good," he said, a note of genuine respect coloring his voice. Kaia looked up, her calm gaze steady and unassuming. "Thanks," she replied simply, without a trace of arrogance. Her quiet acknowledgement was enough. No boast, no challenge, just presence. Later that evening, Lena appeared again at the dojo. She stood silently near the entrance, watching Kaia practice kata alone under the dim glow of the overhead lights. The rhythmic sound of Kaia's breath and movement filled the space with a solemn cadence. Sensei Reyes joined her, standing beside the older woman. "She's changing the way they think," he said quietly, voice low. Lena nodded, her eyes fixed on her niece. "She's not just defending herself. She's rewriting what they expect from someone her age, from someone underestimated." They both understood that this was only the beginning. The real test wouldn't come from within these walls or among these peers. It would come from the outside world, where respect was harder earned and the stakes infinitely higher. And when that moment arrived, Kaia would be ready. The soft hum of the dojo faded into Kaia's mind as she closed her eyes, the world narrowing to a single heartbeat. Memories drifted in, like ghosts whispered on the wind, fragments of a past she had never lived but carried deep inside. She saw her grandfather, General Elias Morgan, standing tall in his uniform, the weight of countless battles in his eyes but a calmness that spoke of resolve. He wasn't a man of many words. His lessons came not in speeches, but in silence. Lessons that Kaia inherited through stories told softly by Lena, and through the disciplined rituals they practiced together. She recalled the worn photo Lena had shown her, the image of a young Elias, steady and unyielding, a faint scar running along his jawline. A silent reminder of battles fought not just with weapons, but with conscience. Elias had faced betrayals, losses, and secrets that nearly broke him, yet he bore his scars with quiet dignity. The memories weren't just history, they were a living pulse inside Kaia. She felt the weight of the dog tags Lena always wore around her neck, cold against her own skin when they trained. Each tag told a story of sacrifice, loyalty, and unspoken duty. Kaia's training was not just about kata or form. It was about carrying a legacy of resilience, one built on sacrifice and the resolve to protect even when unseen. A flashback came, Lena's stern voice in the dim light of their small training room. "Discipline isn't about strength. It's about control. Remember who you are and who you fight for." Kaia exhaled slowly. The words settled into her bones. In the dojo's corner, an old rifle hung, a relic from her grandfather's service. It was a silent sentinel, reminding all who entered that this place held more than just punches and kicks. It held history, honor. As the current class buzzed around her, Kaia stood still, absorbing the unspoken lessons of loss and loyalty. Though she was a child, she bore the gravity of those who had come before her. And with each movement, each breath, she whispered a promise, to honor the past by mastering the present. The silence around her was not emptiness. It was a gathering storm. The dojo lights flickered softly as Kaia adjusted her gi, the fabric brushing quietly against her skin. Around her, the evening class unfolded, students moving in practiced harmony, voices low and respectful. Yet within Kaia, a tempest churned beneath the surface, one forged from years of hidden struggle. She wasn't just carrying the legacy of her grandfather, General Elias Morgan, or the steadfast guidance of her Aunt Lena. She was carrying something more fragile, the weight of loss. Her parents had vanished when she was 6, lost in a conflict no one wanted to speak about. Officially, they were listed as missing in action, but the truth was buried beneath layers of secrecy and silence. Growing up, Kaia had learned to speak in gestures and glances. The dojo was her refuge, a place where pain could be transformed into discipline and grief into control. Her nights were filled with quiet memories, the soft lullabies her mother sang, the firm hands of her father guiding her through the basics of balance and breath. Those moments were fleeting, yet they anchored her when the world seemed uncertain. In the quiet moments before class, she often touched the small scar on her wrist, a faint line shaped like a falcon's wing. It was the only physical mark left from her early training, a symbol that connected her to Lena's unit patch and to the unspoken oath she carried. Sensei Reyes watched her from across the room, noticing how her posture shifted subtly when the memories surfaced, a tightening at the shoulders, a breath held just a fraction too long. He knew she was fighting battles far beyond the dojo's walls. But Kaia didn't ask for sympathy. She welcomed no pity. Her resolve was forged in silence. Tonight, as the class began their drills, she moved with a fierce calm, each punch and block infused with the quiet strength of a child who had learned to stand alone, and yet never truly was. Her form was flawless, but it was the story beneath it, of loss, loyalty, and unyielding discipline, that began to capture the attention of everyone watching. The storm beneath the surface was rising, and soon it would break. The dojo's usual rhythm, swift punches, the shuffle of feet, the calls of encouragement, had softened into a quiet stillness. It was a moment suspended in time, a pause heavy with unspoken stories. Kaia sat cross-legged on the worn wooden floor in the corner, her small frame steady, eyes distant yet focused, as if she were listening to a melody only she could perceive. Around her, the room hummed with the invisible weight of legacy. Generations of silent warriors, whose battles had been fought not for glory or acclaim, but for duty, sacrifice, and honor. Their voices were absent, but their presence was undeniable. The legacy was woven into the very air Kaia breathed. Lena entered softly, moving with the grace of someone accustomed to commanding silence. She knelt beside Kaia, her hand landing lightly on the girl's shoulder, a steady, grounding touch. No words passed between them, none were needed. Their bond spoke louder than any conversation, forged through shared loss and resilience. Beneath Kaia's GI, faint scars curved like the delicate wings of a falcon, the emblem of Lena's unit patch, a symbol of broken chains and unyielding freedom. These scars told stories no one dared ask about. Moments of pain transformed into strength, whispers of hardship etched into skin. Sensei Reyes stood apart, observing quietly. Only now did he understand that Kaia's training went far beyond perfecting kata or mastering technique. It was a training of endurance, of the body, mind, and spirit. He saw the weight she carried, not just on her shoulders, but deep within her soul. She carries more than form, he thought silently. She carries history. Later that evening, as the dojo emptied and the last flickers of light dimmed, Lena approached Kaia with a small, worn journal cradled carefully in her hands. The leather cover was soft from years of use, the pages yellowed and delicate. For when the silence gets too loud, Lena said softly, her voice steady but tender. Inside, the journal was filled with faded ink, letters penned by General Elias Morgan, detailed sketches of stances and moves, notes on discipline and control, and personal words of encouragement meant to guide Kaia through the shadows of doubt and pain. Kaia clutched the journal close to her chest, feeling the weight of her family's legacy seep through the pages and into her heart. It was more than paper. It was a lifeline, a testament to survival, strength, and quiet honor. In that moment, she was no longer just the quiet girl practicing alone in the corner. She was the living breath of a legacy, one forged in silence, tempered by loss, and destined to rise with unwavering dignity. The days that followed Kaia's quiet demonstration hung in the air like a gathering storm, subtle but undeniable. Redwood martial arts no longer felt the same. The dojo's usual steady rhythm, punches, footfalls, controlled breaths, now carried an edge of anticipation, a silent question hanging in the space between movements. Kaia moved through every class with steady focus, her presence calm and undistracted. But the energy around her shifted palpably. It was as if an invisible force was drawing tighter, constricting the air around her. The tension was neither hostile nor friendly. It was expectant, Austin hadn't spoken a word to her since their sparring match. The cocky bravado that once filled the room when he entered was muted, replaced by an uneasy restraint. Those closest to him whispered in hushed tones, debating if Kaia was more than just a lucky beginner, whether her skills were real or something fleeting. Other senior students began to pay closer attention. During warm-ups, their eyes often lingered on Kaia's movements. Their stances stiffened, their bodies more alert. It was the subtle body language of those preparing for a challenge they hadn't anticipated. They wanted to see if her form was a one-time display or a signal of something deeper. Despite this, Kaia never sought to provoke or invite confrontation. Her humility was as much a shield as her discipline. Every step she took was deliberate, each movement precise but unassuming, a quiet force moving through the space without demand or show. One evening, after the last student had left and the dojo settled into near silence, Lena found Kaia sitting alone by the window, gazing out at the fading twilight. The last rays of sun touched her face softly, but her eyes reflected something deeper, a storm calm before the inevitable. "Pressure's building," Lena said quietly, taking a seat beside her. Kaia nodded, her voice steady. "They're watching, waiting." Lena's gaze softened, a blend of pride and concern. "They don't understand yet, but soon they will." Turning toward her aunt, Kaia's voice held quiet certainty. "I'm ready." Lena's hand came down firmly on Kaia's shoulder. "Good, because soon, you won't be the only one surprised." The silence between them held a promise of challenges yet to come, of battles both seen and hidden beneath the surface. Outside, a gentle breeze stirred the leaves, the world moving unaware of the quiet storm gathering within the dojo's walls. Inside, Kaia's breath remained steady, controlled. The calm before the storm. The time to prove herself was approaching, and she would meet it not with anger or boastfulness, but with the quiet strength inherited from a lineage forged in sacrifice and resilience. The dojo was bathed in the fading light of late afternoon, shadows stretching across the worn wooden floorboards. Most of the students had left, the buzz of their chatter replaced by a heavy silence that seemed to thicken with every passing second. Then came the sharp clatter of footsteps approaching the entrance. Austin stood there, his chest heaving slightly, eyes sharp and restless. The easy confidence he once wore like armor had been chipped away by doubt and the unexpected challenge Kaia posed. His smirk was gone, replaced by a tension that didn't quite fit his usual swagger. Kaia remained seated on the mat, her hands resting calmly on her knees. Her gaze was steady, almost unreadable. She didn't rush to stand or confront him. She waited. The weight of the moment hung between them like a charged wire, electric and fragile. Austin's voice broke the silence, rough with impatience. "You've got skill, kid, but let's see if you can back it up." His words were less a question than a provocation. Without waiting for a reply, he shifted into an aggressive fighting stance, feet planted firmly, fists raised and ready to strike. Kaia rose with slow, deliberate grace. Her posture was relaxed but alert, mirroring his stance not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence born of discipline. There was no rush, no flare of emotion, only the calm preparation of someone who knew exactly what she was capable of. The two began to circle each other, each movement measured, the air taut with anticipation. Austin lunged forward first, his strikes fast and forceful, designed to overwhelm with sheer power and aggression. Kaia responded with practiced precision. Her blocks were economical, redirecting Austin's attacks rather than opposing them head-on. Each counterattack was subtle but effective, using minimal energy to maximum effect. Her form flowed seamlessly, a dance of water moving around obstacles, never crashing against them. The dojo grew utterly silent, every eye fixed on the quiet battle unfolding before them. Austin's frustration built as each attempt was thwarted with ease. His strikes slipped away like wind through fingers, leaving him off balance and questioning. Then, in a moment that seemed to slow time, Kaia stepped back, lowered her hands, and bowed slightly, whispering with calm authority, "Control." The single word resonated deeply, echoing through the room, a lesson wrapped in quiet power. Austin lowered his fists, breathing hard, but with a reluctant smile breaking through his tension. The challenge had changed. Sensei Reyes stepped forward, his voice measured and clear. "Well done, both of you." This was never a contest of strength, but of understanding. The tension melted into something new, respect, unspoken but undeniable. Kaia's quiet resilience had spoken louder than any boast or shout. In that moment, the dojo understood. True strength lay not in force, but in control, discipline, and presence. The dojo felt unusually still that morning, the kind of silence that fills a room when everyone is holding their breath. Word of the sparring match between Kaia and Austin had spread quickly through Redwood martial arts, stirring a mix of anticipation, skepticism, and quiet curiosity. The regular buzz of conversation was replaced by whispers and sideways glances, as students and instructors alike wondered what the quiet girl was truly capable of. Sensei Reyes entered first, his expression as unreadable as ever. His gaze swept across the gathered students, brown belts, black belts, and novices alike, each waiting with a mixture of eagerness and uncertainty. He carried himself with the same measured calm that Kaia exhibited, though beneath it, he was aware of the shifting currents in the room. Kaia stood at the center of the mat, her posture steady and composed. She wore no sign of triumph or arrogance, only a quiet strength that came from years of disciplined training and a legacy heavier than most could imagine. Her eyes were focused, yet soft, carrying the weight of history and the promise of something greater yet to come. Austin lingered at the edge of the mat, his earlier bravado replaced by a subtle unease. He was no longer the cocky opponent who expected an easy victory. Now, his stance betrayed respect tinged with hesitation, the kind born when one realizes the opponent's depth far exceeds initial assumptions. Sensei Reyes raised his hand, calling the room to attention. His voice cut through the silence, calm but commanding. Today, you will witness a demonstration not of power, but of control. Without hesitation, he gestured toward Kaia. The girl stepped forward with deliberate grace and began her kata. Her movements were fluid and exact, each stance held with purposeful intention, each strike calculated for maximum effect, with minimum wasted energy. The precision in her form spoke volumes, reflecting not just training but lived experience. The room fell into reverent silence, every eye fixed on her. As Kaia progressed through the kata, subtle details emerged, the slight shifts in balance, the controlled breathing, the economy of motion that only those trained to notice could truly appreciate. It was clear she wasn't performing for show. She was embodying something far deeper, a legacy of resilience, sacrifice, and unyielding discipline. Austin's expression flickered with surprise. He was witnessing not a child's mimicry, but the quiet power of a warrior in waiting. The kata ended with Kaia holding her final stance, perfectly still, before bowing deeply. Her eyes lowered in respect, not for applause, but for the journey she had undertaken. For a long moment, the dojo remained motionless. Then, slowly, a profound silence settled over the room, a silence thick with respect and recognition. Sensei Reyes nodded solemnly. Let this be a lesson. True strength is not found in the loudest shout or the hardest strike, but in control, presence, and humility. Kaia stepped back into the shadows of the dojo, her dignity quietly reclaimed, the space she had earned now undeniable. This moment had changed everything. The dojo remained cloaked in silence long after Kaia stepped back from the mat. No one dared to break the quiet that had settled like a heavy blanket over the room. It wasn't the kind of silence born from uncertainty or awkwardness. This was a silence thick with something deeper, respect, awe, and the slow, dawning realization that everything they thought they knew was changing. Austin was the first to move. His usual brash confidence had been replaced by a humility that surprised everyone. He nodded slowly, eyes steady as he faced Kaia. I underestimated you, he said softly, the words carrying more weight than any boast or challenge ever had. There was no bitterness or resentment, only a genuine, reluctant respect that felt hard-earned and real. Kaia met his gaze for a brief moment, her expression calm and unreadable. Her eyes, deep beyond her 12 years, told a story no one else could see, a story of endurance, silent strength, and the quiet battles she fought daily. She said nothing, for words were unnecessary. Her presence alone spoke volumes. Sensei Reyes stepped forward, the authority in his voice cutting through the stillness. This, he said slowly, is what true mastery looks like. It's not about overpowering others or seeking glory. It's about mastering oneself, control, patience, and humility. The murmurs began softly, rippling through the students like a gentle tide. Conversations sparked up, filled with renewed respect and curiosity about the quiet girl who had once been overlooked. The skepticism that had shadowed Kaia's steps started to fade, replaced by an understanding that true strength often hides beneath silence. From the doorway, Lena watched quietly, a faint smile touching her lips. She understood that this moment, while significant, was only the beginning of Kaia's journey. The challenges ahead, outside these walls, beyond the safety of the dojo, would be even more demanding. But for now, dignity had been restored without a single harsh word or unnecessary blow. Kaia gathered her belongings with deliberate care. Her movements were slow, purposeful, a reflection of the discipline that defined her. As she prepared to leave, she glanced back once, a brief, almost imperceptible look that conveyed more than words could. It was not pride or arrogance, but a quiet assurance that she belonged here, and that she would face whatever came next with steady resolve. Outside, the setting sun cast long shadows across the parking lot, painting the world in hues of gold and amber. Kaia's silhouette was small, but unshakable, a testament to the legacy she carried forward, not with noise or spectacle, but with quiet triumph. In the days that followed the sparring match and Kaia's kata demonstration, the atmosphere within Redwood Martial Arts shifted in ways that no one could deny. What had once been whispered skepticism gradually gave way to a cautious, growing respect. The quiet storm Kaia carried inside her, a storm forged from years of discipline, sacrifice, and unspoken resilience, was no longer a secret. It had revealed itself, subtle yet unmistakable. Sensei Reyes watched from his usual vantage point near the back wall, eyes narrowed thoughtfully. He observed the changes not only in how the other students treated Kaia, but also in their own attitudes toward training. The lessons she had brought, lessons of humility, precision, and control, began to ripple through the dojo, encouraging even the most stubborn to reconsider what true strength meant. One warm afternoon, as the class was winding down and the sun cast long shadows through the windows, Sensei Reyes gathered the students together in a circle on the mats. His voice, calm yet carrying authority, drew immediate attention. "Kaia," he said, "come forward." A hush fell over the room. Kaia rose smoothly and stepped to the center, her posture composed and steady. The students exchanged glances, some surprised, others uncertain. It was unusual for someone so young and relatively new to be given such responsibility. Sensei Reyes continued, "Today, you will lead the warm-up." For a brief moment, the room was silent. Then, with quiet confidence, Kaia began. Her movements were precise and deliberate as she guided the class through stretches, breathing exercises, and light drills. Her voice, though soft, carried an unexpected authority. Every instruction was clear, every motion deliberate. The students followed her lead without hesitation, their respect for her deepening with every controlled movement. What had once been doubt transformed into trust and admiration. After the session, as students gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, a small group approached Kaia. Among them was Marcus, a senior brown belt known for his blunt honesty and initial skepticism. He looked at her earnestly and said quietly, "I wanted to say, I was wrong. You have something none of us expected." Kaia's faint smile was a quiet acknowledgement of the journey she had walked. "Thank you," she replied simply. Outside the dojo, Lena stood watching through the window, pride shining in her eyes. The legacy her family had guarded was no longer a distant memory or whispered story. It was alive, growing stronger, and quietly changing the world around them. The quiet storm within Kaia had been revealed, and it was only the beginning. The weeks following Kaia's quiet rise in stature within Redwood Martial Arts brought a shift in the dojo's atmosphere. The initial whispers of doubt and curiosity had settled into something deeper, an unspoken acknowledgement. The students no longer saw her as the shy, overlooked girl who had once barely spoken. She had become a presence that demanded space, not through loud declarations or bravado, but through a steady, undeniable skill and discipline. Then came the announcement of a local martial arts tournament. a modest regional event that drew fighters from schools nearby. It was the kind of competition that could easily be overlooked, yet it represented a chance for those brave enough to step outside their familiar walls and test themselves in the wider world. Sensei Reyes gathered the class one evening and, after a measured silence, declared, "Kaia will represent Redwood Martial Arts at the upcoming tournament." The room rippled with surprise. Some students exchanged skeptical glances. Others, including Austin and Marcus, showed hints of cautious excitement. For Kaia, the invitation was far more than just a chance to compete. It was a chance to carry her family's legacy forward, to demonstrate the quiet strength that had been cultivated in the shadows and silence of her training. The day of the tournament arrived with a sky heavy with clouds and a light drizzle tapping on the arena's roof. The crowd inside was a mosaic of parents, coaches, spectators, and competitors. The noise and energy contrasted sharply with the quiet resolve Kaia carried within her. Her classmates sat among the spectators, their faces reflecting pride, anticipation, and respect. Austin, who had once challenged her, now watched with a newfound humility. Marcus, too, nodded quietly, as if acknowledging the strength he had initially overlooked. When Kaia's name was called, the room seemed to shift. Her opponents were older, more experienced, and confident, sizing her up with a mix of curiosity and dismissal. But Kaia stepped into the ring with calm focus, her movements controlled and precise. She anticipated attacks not with aggression, but with patience and control, redirecting force, countering with subtlety. Her form was flawless, every strike measured, every dodge calculated. It was not the flashiest style, but it was devastatingly effective. With each match she won, the crowd grew quieter, drawn not by spectacle, but by the silent power embodied in her presence. The energy was different now, respectful, almost reverent. After her final match, the arena was still for a moment. Then a slow, swelling applause rose. The standing ovation was not just for the victories, but for the undeniable truth she had revealed. Strength carried with humility can command the loudest respect. Austin caught her gaze from the crowd, his expression a mixture of awe and respect. No words were exchanged, but his nod said everything. Backstage, Sensei Reyes approached her, his voice low but filled with pride. "Today, you made your legacy known to more than just this dojo." Kaia smiled softly, the weight of silence no longer a burden, but her greatest ally. Backstage, the atmosphere was unlike the usual post-tournament clamor. There were no boisterous celebrations, no loud cheers, just a profound quietude, almost reverential, that hung over the small group gathered around Kaia. The victory was not marked by flashy displays or triumphant shouts, but by a subtle and profound shift in how those around her saw her. Her classmates had gathered in a loose semicircle, their faces reflecting genuine admiration. The skepticism that had once surrounded Kaia had melted away, replaced by respect that was quietly, deeply felt. Marcus stepped forward first. He extended a hand to her with a sincerity that surprised many. "You were incredible out there," he said, his voice steady and honest. "I never thought I'd say this, but you've earned every ounce of respect from all of us." Kaia accepted the handshake with a slight nod, her eyes calm and unassuming. She said nothing. Her quiet demeanor spoke louder than any words could. Austin lingered nearby, standing slightly apart, but unable to hide the shift in his expression. The cocky arrogance was gone, replaced by a humbled gaze and a thoughtful calm. When their eyes met, he nodded once in silent acknowledgement. No words were exchanged between them, none were necessary. The mutual understanding, the unspoken recognition of Kaia's strength and character, carried far more weight. Sensei Reyes stepped closer, placing a firm yet gentle hand on Kaia's shoulder. His voice was low but full of pride. "You have done more than prove your skill today," he said. "You have shown what it means to carry a legacy with honor. That is the true measure of a warrior." For a brief moment, Kaia's thoughts drifted to her family, the stern yet proud gaze of her grandfather, the unwavering support of her Aunt Lena. Their sacrifices, their quiet strength, had shaped her, and in this moment, she felt their presence clearly. The legacy she carried was no mere story, it was a living part of her. Outside, the crowd in the arena buzzed with the energy of spectators discussing the day's events. But here, In this small circle of respect and understanding, silence reigned, a silence filled with meaning and recognition. Kaia's journey was far from over. Challenges lay ahead, tests of strength and character yet to come. But in this moment, she had reclaimed her dignity and earned her place, not through noise or spectacle, but through quiet resilience and unwavering discipline. Her legacy was alive, and it would continue, quietly but powerfully, in every step she took forward. The dojo had settled into an almost sacred stillness as the sun began its slow descent behind the distant hills. Long shadows stretched across the polished wooden floor, weaving patterns of light and darkness that mirrored the journey Kaia had traveled. The usual sounds of training, grunts, punches, commands, were gone, replaced by the calm hum of twilight. Kaia sat quietly on a worn wooden bench near the entrance, her gi folded neatly beside her. Her posture was relaxed but dignified, eyes distant as if listening to memories carried on the fading light. This moment was hers alone, a rare pause in the relentless rhythm of discipline and expectation. Lena approached slowly, carrying a small wooden box with a soft clink of movement within. She sat beside Kaia, opening the box carefully to reveal a collection of cherished relics. A faded dog tag, its metal worn smooth by time and touch, an old black-and-white photograph of her grandfather in uniform, eyes sharp and resolute, and a worn leather journal filled with delicate handwriting and sketches of martial techniques passed down through generations. These were his, Lena said softly, voice tinged with reverence. He fought silently, with honor, never seeking glory, only doing what was right. Kaia reached out, her fingers tracing the edge of the dog tag, feeling the cold, solid weight. A tangible connection to a legacy not easily earned. The history pressed upon her, not as a burden, but as a mantle she was ready to carry forward. She lifted her gaze to meet Lena's steady eyes. "I want to keep moving forward," she whispered, "not to prove anything to others, but to honor everything they sacrificed." Lena nodded slowly, a quiet, knowing smile touching her lips. "And you will. Because true strength isn't measured in victories or applause. It's in who we are when no one is watching." The two sat together in companionable silence as the last rays of the sun slipped away. Outside, the world hurried on, busy, noisy, unpredictable. But inside the dojo, within this fragile moment, Kaia had reclaimed something far more precious. Her dignity, her legacy, and the quiet strength that would guide her through all that lay ahead. The dojo was empty now, bathed in the soft glow of the fading afternoon light filtering through the windows. Shadows stretched long and gentle across the wooden floor, as if quietly marking the end of a long journey. Kaia stood alone in the center of the room, her silhouette steady and calm, carrying the invisible weight of countless unspoken battles. Her gi hung neatly on a nearby hook, a symbol of discipline, perseverance, and the countless hours of quiet dedication. In her hands, she held the worn leather journal Lena had given her, the pages weathered but alive with stories of sacrifice, honor, and resilience. Each word written within felt like a whisper from the past, a bridge connecting her to a legacy that had been quietly forged through generations. Kaia closed her eyes for a moment, letting memories wash over her. The stern lessons of her grandfather, the gentle but firm support of her Aunt Lena, the initial doubt and later respect from her peers, all these moments blended into the fabric of who she was becoming. There was no boastfulness in her heart, only a deep, steady resolve. When she opened her eyes, she moved toward the entrance of the dojo with slow, deliberate steps. Before stepping out, she paused to glance back at the room. This space where she had faced doubt, shown strength, and reclaimed her dignity. The look she cast was not one of regret, but of quiet pride and acceptance. Outside, the world hummed with life, noisy, unpredictable, and indifferent. But Kaia walked forward with calm certainty, the quiet storm inside her now a steady, guiding force. She carried her legacy not in grand gestures or loud words, but through the unwavering presence of someone who refused to be underestimated. As the door closed softly behind her, silence settled once more in the dojo. This time, a silence that spoke of respect, resilience, and the promise of what was yet to come. Thank you for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and share your thoughts below. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Stay tuned for more immersive tactical stories.